What's up, guys, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Sinister Files. If you like what you see or hear, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to stay up to date on all my newest content. When I was 25, there was a short time I was staying with my aunt. It was her, my two cousins, and I. She lives in a nice apartment complex and her unit is on the lower level. Her living room had a lot of windows that she kept open for fresh air and for her cats to people watch. Her unit happens to be on the corner near a grassy courtyard path. When I had first moved in, I noticed a man who gave me an odd vibe. My cousins and aunt said he lived upstairs 2 units over, recovering from hard drugs and permanently messed up. His parents paid for him to stay there because they obviously didn't want him living with them. They also said other than hearing him mumble, he would say weird things, but no one ever had an issue. My aunt works nights and leaves at 3 a.m. My younger cousin works nights and leaves at 2 a.m. That usually left me and my same age cousin alone till about 8 o'clock when we had to take off. For context, it is very open living room to dining room plan. My aunt always had people staying over, so she had a second couch in the dining room in place of a table. That is where I slept. She stayed on the one in the living room. My aunt also had never been the one to lock her doors until this incident. One night I'm on my phone trying to sleep. It's about 1 a.m. and I hear a man yelling. He's yelling, "Don't shoot," banging on the door to the right of ours. 2 male college students lived there and just told him he had the wrong apartment and to leave. He says sorry and walks off. Now I'm looking at him through my kitchen window, which is a direct line of sight from my couch and bed. And it's the weird neighbor who sees me and grins and then walks back to his home. I wasn't settled, but not enough to wake everyone else up over it. Told my family nonchalantly the next day, but I kinda just shook it off and played it off as nothing major. Later on that night, me and my cousin are watching a movie before we head off to bed. I have a very hard time staying asleep, but I woke up this time to the feeling of someone watching me. I check my phone and it's around 3:30 a.m., so I know it's not my aunt or my cousin. I sit up and figure I'll go watch TV in my aunt's couch since she was gone already. The feeling gets stronger as I'm in the living room. Then I see a shadow of a person standing still in the grassy courtyard looking in. I froze. I immediately go back to my couch and get my phone. As I do, the person is gone. I am now trying to calm myself down and think of waking up my cousin when I hear a creepy man's voice. He is now at the kitchen window, which looks out directly in front of her front door. I drop to the floor, out of his line of sight, and start frantically trying to call my cousin. The man is now saying things in the window at the front door like, "I'm not going to hurt you," and "I'm unarmed," over and over again. His face is up against the window. Then he starts talking about wanting to pet the cats he saw through the window. I can't get a hold of my cousin. It's been 20 minutes of this at this point. In this completely clown shit situation, I didn't have many options. I could jump up and run for a knife, but I need to go to the kitchen. I could try to respond and ask him to leave, but I've learned when you underestimate crazy, you lose every single time. I now hear him knocking and knocking while repeating his nonsense. I'm doing the ridiculous looking army crawl snake slither across the floor down to the hall now. I see the door handle and it starts to turn. I'm about to jump up when my cousin bursts out of his room directly across from the front door. Now, he's not the biggest guy, but boy was he intimidatingly mad at the circus show taking place in front of his door. He starts yelling at the guy that he needs to get the fuck off of his porch or he's gonna call the cops. The man tries to say, "I'm unarmed. I'm not going to hurt you. You don't need to be afraid." My cousin goes off and yells, "That's fucking dandy, but it's 4 a.m. You need to leave or I'll call the cops. What the fuck is wrong with you?" So the guy backs up and his hands are in the air and he leaves. Needless to say, we didn't go back to sleep. My aunt called the apartment manager, and the next day when I came home from work, his parents were there packing moving boxes in the truck from his place. Maybe he was trying to get me to open the door by seeming friendly. Maybe he had a bad trip and really wanted to pet a cat to feel better. We will never know. Some background of my house. It's newer, built in 2004, and the previous owners wanted to sell it ASAP and move out of state. I checked all the records for deaths, murders, and anything else. It was foreclosed on the owner before a couple we bought it from, and was sold to the person from their mother, I assume for $1. I personally think that the people who bought it got it foreclosed has something to do with all this, but I don't know what. From day one, it gave me weird vibes. When I first moved in with my son, who was 2.5 at the time, he loved the show Blaze and Monster Machine. I was at work and my husband told me he was acting weird, talking to Gabby, a character from the show, and trying to go outside late at night. He kept waving to no one, saying Gabby wants him to go with her. My husband is a skeptic and not easily spooked, but he said it was really creepy. Over time, he started talking about people in his closet that watch him sleep. It got so bad I moved him out of his room and he began sleeping in mine until his brother was born. They now share a room at his request, and the room that was originally his is now a workout room. I hate that room. It makes me uneasy even being in there, especially the closet. It makes me nauseous standing in there, honestly. One night about 6 months ago, my younger son, about 1.5 years old at the time, woke up and cried, but fell right back asleep. The door was closed to the room, but as I walked to the door to listen, I heard what sounded like an old lady humming. I kind of brushed it off and went back to bed thinking I was just being paranoid. Later, about 3 a.m., I heard what I thought was my older son giggle and jump in my bed. It woke up my husband. I said his name. After no reply, I turned on my phone flashlight on to see what was going on. There was nothing. I checked the baby monitor camera and he was asleep in his room. Things often go missing and then turn up where you wouldn't even have placed them. Things like open energy drinks, remotes, really anything and everything. It's happened too much to think it's being forgetful. There was this one time I was recording the room that creeps me out for my friend to see, and I walked into my kid's current room and noticed a box in the closet. It had huge claw marks, bigger than any of my cats. I walked back into the other room, and from the closet of my kid's room, banging started, like something hitting the boxes. I noped out of that house and literally ran out, still recording. I was alone at the time, but no, I didn't bail on my kids. 2 days ago, my son drew a picture of the family. He drew him, me, his dad, his little brother, and something he called the taken boy. He drew the one all in black, excluding the eyes that were left white. The rest of us had normal eyes and weren't colored in. He told me the taken boy comes at night. We can't see him, only my son can. And he really scares my son. Now it's important to note that my son wakes up and grabs his little brother and comes to my bed every single night, and has been doing this for the last 6 months. He said the taken boy tells him he's gonna die and other terrible things. It made me so creeped out, I wouldn't let the boys out of my sight, and still haven't. We've slept downstairs in the living room for the last few nights, because he said the taken boy doesn't come down here. This house seriously creeps me out. Stuff often is thrown at me. I feel breathing on the back of my neck, hearing talking that's too distant to make out what's being said, and so much more. Now let me begin by saying this. I have many stories, but this is the one that stuck with me for many years. I was a rookie when this happened, probably in the force for a year or two. I was called out to a possible domestic abuse case. The mother called it in. But anyways, when I pulled in and got out of the vehicle, I could already smell it. I had only been with the force for a year at this point, but I had already became accustomed to the smell of something dead. I went to the door and pounded on it. Finally, someone answered. A middle-aged, lanky, pale, tall, and skinny guy. He already had an expression of confusion mixed with fear, and I had stated the reason why I was there. I said that there was an anonymous tip. But as soon as I said that, his already pale face went as white as snow. I asked him if I could come in and take a look around, and he obviously did not let me. It didn't matter though, I had a warrant. I went in and looked around, called out for the girl, and by my utter dismay, she came down the stairs, and my heart started pumping because not only was she not the person that I was looking for, and she looked perfectly fine. And now I'm thinking, what is that rotting smell? So I started looking around, looking and looking. And when I couldn't find anything, I had no other choice but to leave. So a few weeks passed, and I got another call from dispatch. It was the mother, the same one who had previously called. I was freaked out, so I went back and got out, and surprisingly I couldn't smell anything. So I started thinking maybe I was just smelling a deer or something that night, something rational. And I walked up to the door and convinced myself I was just overreacting because I was still pretty new. I got up to the door and knocked, etc., etc. The same guy answered, and to my surprise I asked if I could come in, and this time he said yes. I walked in and looked around. The girl came down again, looked perfectly fine. And now I'm thinking, why am I getting called out here? Obviously there's no signs of abuse. So whatever. I just wanted to look around some more. I went upstairs, nothing. I checked the basement, nothing. Then I saw some kind of shed, and I noticed that there was a huge padlock on it. What kind of shed like that needs large protection? It wasn't one of them tiny padlock either, it was an industrial sized padlock. So I'm already suspicious, and I asked to go out there and take a look, and they refused. So at this moment I'm like, okay, yeah, they're definitely hiding something. I go to court and get a warrant under a suspicion of abuse. I go back and I show it to them. At this point they start freaking out and trying to lie and make up reasons why they can't show me. So I finally get them to open it by telling them if they don't open it, they're going to go to jail for obstruction of justice. That's when they cave, and the guy goes and gets the key and come back. He finally opens the shed, and right when he opens it, I can instantly smell it again. And now I'm thinking there's something wrong because I looked everywhere and there's nothing. It was normal. The shed had no obvious signs of anything. And I start really looking, pulling things out, the whole 9 yards. But then I finally pull a tarp. And what I'm greeted with is a horrific scene of 5 to 6 human body parts, arms, legs, and torsos, but no head. And immediately, when I seen that, I turned around to confront them, but I was met with this guy swinging a bat. I pulled out my weapon, fired 2 shots, straight into his chest. And that was the first time and the only time I ever killed someone. And I will never forget the sound it made as the bullets made impact with his chest. Just 2 thuds. Boom. Boom. I went back and cuffed the girl, and she was wailing and flailing the whole time. I called in for backup in the corner. We brought the girl back to the station for questioning. When we brought her in and she started spilling, she was talking about how it was a dispute over drugs, and she switched her story to say she didn't know anything. It was clear she was not stable, but she finally confessed about what it really was. She said her and her boyfriend were part of a cult where they would kill random people as sacrifices. And the only reason why they were so hesitant to let me in the first time is because the person that they had killed a week before I came was still in the house. So I would have found it, but as soon as I left, they moved it into the shed, and she said that's when they bought a brand new padlock for it, because that's not usually where they keep the bodies at. When she said the bodies, I instantly see we were dealing with something more, because she said that there were somewhere between 15 to 20 bodies buried in the land. So needless to say, she was sentenced to life in prison. The courts were pushing for the death penalty, but there wasn't enough evidence that she had killed the people that they had dug up. The reason I'm writing this now is because we were never able to find out who the cults were and what members were they. A few hours ago, I just received a letter in the mail with the words, "Are you ready?" with the name of the man that I killed on it. I have never been so scared in my life, and I know I just got a gut feeling that something bad is going to happen.
So thank you for watching another episode of the Sinister Files. Remember to like and subscribe, and to stay up to date on all my newest content, go ahead and turn on the notifications. Thank you for watching.